Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to use the Blacksmith punch to punch a hole in hot metal. The first thing I'm going to talk about is a couple different styles of punches that you can use to punch holes. This one is the most basic kind, and I would highly recommend that beginners start with this kind. It's just a long piece of some type of tool steel with a short point on the end down to about it's a little short taper down to about 3/16 of an inch thick on the end. That's a good standard size for screw holes and J-hooks and that sort of thing. This particular punch is made out of like a coil spring material off of a car. I would highly recommend that material for beginners starting out. It's a very forgiving material, very easy to obtain, and very cheap. A couple other punches that I have here, different styles. This one's for use under a power hammer. As you can see, it's much shorter. It's also made out of coil spring under a car, from under a car, and it's a good punch. And I've used this one quite a bit under the power hammers. As you can see, it's held up quite well. The handle on all of my punches that have handles, they're all mild steel. This particular one is made out of 1/4 inch round stock. Another style of punch here, or pretty much the basic style, same style as the other one, but just for a different purpose. This one's for punching large holes on hinges. You can see it's a 3/8 inch punch here on the end. It's much larger. This one is actually made out of a ball peen hammer, which is a pretty good material to use. It's held up pretty well. And so that's another good punch there. And once again, it's got the handle welded onto it. My 1/4 inch handle ended up a little short, so I had to weld an extension onto it. Another style of punch here is a much shorter punch. It's made out of a much higher grade material than spring steel, and so I use this shorter style. It's much more material efficient, and it's very handy. It's very maneuverable for working under power hammers. Just a very handy punch, and that's a good punch. So if you're working under power hammers, a punch like this is going to serve you well. Today, for the demo, I'm going to keep it simple, stick with this hand punch here, and we're doing it on the anvil. Another tool you're going to need for punching holes is the punch plate. Now, these are a couple different styles of punch plates. This one here is the most basic style. It's just a flat bar, 3/8 by 1 inch flat bar with a bunch of holes drilled in it of different sizes for punching different size holes. This one here fits in the hole, on the hardy hole on the anvil. And so you can punch holes, and it kind of keeps it stationary. It keeps it from moving around. It can also be clamped to the side of a power hammer die and used under power hammer. So I'm going to use this one here for today's demo. Now, before I do this do the demo hot, I'm going to kind of explain different steps, what I'm doing on the material when it's cold. When you're punching a hole, if you need the hole to be in a certain precise position, you want to mark that before you heat the material up and before you begin punching your hole. Once the material is hot, bring it out, put it on the anvil face, line up your punch, and give your punch 2 or 3 good solid blows. Once that's done, take and get the punch out of the material and cool it off. This is assuming that you're not working with an air hardening material, that you're working with a spring steel punch or something like that. Nearly all the punches you're going to be working with is probably going to be a material that's going to need to be cooled off. So give your punch 2 or 3 good hammer blows, get it out of the material, and cool it off. I've got a can of water just outside of the video on a tool table within easy reach. Now, a lot of times when you're doing this and you give those 2 or 3 good blows, the material or the punch will kind of stick in the hole that you're punching through the material. If this happens, just take your hammer and hit the material over next to the punch on either side of it, and that'll kind of help free that up. It'll kind of help pull that punch out and then, of course, cool it off. Now you're going to punch through the material until you feel a little bit of resistance coming from the anvil face. And at that point, flip the material over, and you're going to be able to see a little mark on the other side, a little dark spot on the other side of the material. And that's where your punch, that's where your hole is on the other side. And so take your punch, put it in the center of that mark that you see, and give it a couple good hammer blows. After you give it a couple good hammer blows, you should feel the material kind of break off inside the hole. It'll take some practice to get a feel for all this. but don't worry, it won't take long. It's not an incredibly hard thing to do. Just a little bit of practice and you'll have it down pat. But you'll feel that material shear off inside that hole. And once you feel that, that's when you take your material, place it over the punch plate, and you're going to punch the material out of the hole. And it'll fall through the hole on your punch plate. One other thing is that when you're punching out holes, you want to choose a hole in your punch plate that matches or is a little larger than the size of your punch. On this particular punch plate here, I would use the smallest hole because it's the one that's just slightly larger than my punch. You don't want your punch to go all the way through your punch plate and then hit the anvil face. You can see it's kind of sticking out just a little bit on this side, and that would mushroom my punch, and I would have to redress my punch by sanding it. On this punch plate here, I can use this hole, and it's a pretty good size hole, and it's about perfect for this size punch here. So I'm going to use this hole in this punch plate. I'm going to get the material out of the fire. I got to get it up to temperature right quick, and then I'll bring it out and do the demo hot. And so hopefully that'll clear up any confusion. Alright, so to punch a hole, get your punch lined up. Give a couple good hammer blows. Didn't stick in the material that time, which was nice. Alright, I felt the resistance of the anvil face under the punch, so I want to quit punching. And you see there's a dark spot right here. Now the center of that dark spot is where my hole is, so I want to try to find the center of that dark spot. Give it a couple good hammer blows. Alright. Felt the material shear off. You see how my punch is sticking. That's not good. Gotta get it out of there as fast as we can. But that material sheared off in that hole, so now it's ready to be punched out over the punch plate. So you want to try to line up your hole on the punch plate there. Get your punch and then punch the material out of the hole. Alright, there we go. You see, I've got a hole all the way through the material right there. It's pretty even on both sides, which is what we want. See if I can get this punch plate out. When you're punching out material, punch plate is going to get hot. Don't touch it. Use a pair of tongs. Get that thing cooled off so you don't burn yourself on it. Now you can see right here, I don't know, hopefully you'll be able to see it. You can see right here on the anvil I have a little biscuit that was punched out of the material and through the punch plate hole. And that's just the material that we punched out of this hole in the material that we punched. So that's how you punch a hole in hot metal using the blacksmith punch. Whenever you're doing this stuff, always be careful. You don't want to burn yourself. It hurts a lot. One thing I like to do is when I'm done working with a piece of material, I don't like to quench it off in water because that tends to harden it up a little bit, and if you ever have to drill or cut that piece later on, it's going to dull your drill bits faster and dull your bandsaw blades faster. So let the material air cool. Just take it, toss it under your forge, and that should be a safe place to put it until it cools off enough to touch. So I hope you've learned something in this video. I hope that now you can go out to your forge and punch holes in different projects that you're working on. Punching is a very basic skill and needs to be learned. And not only how to punch, but how to properly take care of your punches, how to make them. All that stuff is stuff that needs to be learned when you're first starting out. And so punching is a very basic technique. Comes in very handy. There's a lot of times when a drill bit just won't cut it. So you're going to need to be able to learn how to punch. And so hopefully this video will show you enough to get you practicing how to punch holes on your own. Thanks for watching.